Okay, City of Mulberry, thought I'd give you a quick rundown on a little bit about your district from a historical standpoint. So, we've got it zoomed in here with what you can link from the City of Mulberry website. And I'll call out first the names of these particular districts. So, you'll see you've got Puckett's, and you have Duncan's, and then down here in the bottom, you've got Rocky Creek. And Puckett's and Duncan's are named for family. Puckett's, of course, for the Puckett's community that moved in here. And if you're familiar with Cherokee, the Cherokee Bluffs Park in Hall County, there's a big rock over there. That's where the Puckett's, when they came in, they spent their first winter under the edge of that rock, then moved kind of into this area. And so you have the different Puckett's districts. So that's how you got Puckett's. Duncan's also came down very early in the county or pre-county's history, and they settled kind of in this valley right through here. And it's for Duncan's Creek. So you've probably seen Duncan's Creek Church. Duncan's Creek actually heads out not far from the Kohl's and the Home Depot. So if you ever drive to Kohl's, you'll notice you kind of go down and over a little bit of a ditch. That is Duncan's Creek. It heads out just above there and then runs that direction. That's how you get the Duncan's name. Rocky Creek was known as the roughest and kind of hardest district in Gwinnett County from its early founding. And that, if you'll look, kind of encompasses this area just north of Decula, but not quite up to the Hog Mountain area, and named for a creek in the area. It's known as Rocky Creek. So that's a little bit about the names. Now you'll notice the shape of the county kind of is unique, comes down, and then there's this heavy point that goes up here and then comes back down to this point, and then of course City of Mulberry is all those colored areas. This line follows the original Hall County, Gwinnett County line as it was laid out, and it went to a point in this direction. I'll show you something on that in a minute. This corner was actually in dispute in the 20s, and the Secretary of State ruled in favor of Gwinnett to have that corner where it's at. And then this line went over to Thompson's Mill. So if you're ever driving up in this area or driving up toward Beaufort, you'll see Thompson's Mill, and that is the road that would take you from this area over to Thompson's Mill. Coming down from Thompson Mill, it went in a straight line down to this point, which is the center of the Appalachian River. This is one of the most historic sites in Gwinnett County as far as non-native settlements. This mill site was documented early. There was actually an Indian skirmish here in January of 1815 related to the War of 1812. This was actually Hill's Mill on the Appalachia. It later became owned by the Freeman family. A separate Freeman family built a mill in the Alcovey. So if you're familiar with the Gwinnett Parks, you'll know there's a Freeman's Mill Park that's down on the Alcovey River. This Freeman's Mill is older than that. That's why the road that leads you to that spot is called Old Freeman's Mill Road. When Barrow County is laid out, they make a point of going from where this line up here would have struck Thompson's Mill, and then a straight line from Thompson's Mill down to the center of Appalachian River at the Freeman's Mill Old site. So that's why it goes there. Now, kind of following some of these areas, obviously you can only get so close, and it has to follow certain voting districts, but we'll follow as best we can. This road right here is known as Hill Shop Road, and then it kind of changes names once you get over into Gwinnett County. The Hill family that owned this mill was in this area. They had an actual blacksmith shop that was in there. Let's zoom in just a touch and see if we can't get a little bit better picture of some of these things. Okay, so there you are, Hill Shop Road, and then makes that first turn where it comes down and follows Bailey Road. Now, this line right here, there was actually an Appalachian Road that used to come down through here and crossed over the railroad right here and tied in the old Freeman's Mill Road. Bailey Road, another old family in the area was the Baileys, and they used to actually quarry stone on the Appalachian River and floated it down, and it helped build the dam, and some of those stones are still there. And ironically, not ironically, but my third great-grandfather was wounded at Chancellorsville, the same place that Stonewall Jackson was wounded. He was sent home to recover, and he actually surrendered to Yankee cavalry just at the top of the hill, not far from where they used to do the quarrying and stuff. So Yankee cavalry came through this area in 1865. I've got those maps on my website if you're ever interested in seeing those. They're at the Library of Congress, where they notated how they came through the area. The boundary then follows the Appalachian River. So this is the original line of the United States in 1790 was the Appalachian River. So this would have been the United States. This area would have been the Creek Indian Nation. It comes back up here, and you'll notice from there it's going to take a turn and follow in this direction all the way back up to where you see Jim Moore. So we know we're following essentially where Decula Road crosses, comes all the way up, ties back into what becomes Gravel Springs Road 324, and then makes its way. Now, let me zoom in right here because I'll call you out just something kind of unique about this particular intersection. If you'll look, you can see Jim Moore Road comes straight, and it ties into the road across the way, which is Old Fountain. The Fountain, which is a derivation of a French name, Fontaine. They got land in the land lottery down here. That road took you to their land, and it was eventually became, instead of the road to the Fontaine place, it was Old Fountain Road, and that's why it's called that. Now across the side is Jim Moore. Jim Moore moved here in the 1870s and settled back in this area. But you'll notice that like the boundary line makes a curve here where Jim Moore Road goes straight. Well, that's because Jim Moore Road used to make this turn, and it came out right here, and there was a large hill in this area that was always rumored to have been some type of graveyard or school or church or something like that when I was a kid. So the boundary line follows the original road, and then when I was in high school, they leveled this hill and straightened the road out. Now, I will say there is some truth to that rumor, because if you ever go to my YouTube channel and look at the, let's see, my old schoolmaster is the name of it. I can't remember the guy's name. Davy Richardson, I think, was his name. He taught at this school that was here, and he supposedly fought in the War of 1812. So just one of those quirks as to how your area is just delineated slightly different. As we continue up Gravel Springs, Auburn Road, whatever you want to call it, you'll notice it comes up here, and it makes another one of those weird turns. This is in recollection of how the roads used to go. This curve didn't exist until a few years ago. You actually went straight here, and then you made a turn here, and this kind of snaked around till you got the four-way stop. The Warburtons used to have a gas station up here many, many years ago, and at that time you did actually have a partial road that came this direction. The road made a turn here, and of course here's Hog Mountain Church, and you can, on the YouTube channel, I've got Amos Hadaway's autobiography. He was a founding member of Hog Mountain Church, and you'll notice Hog Mountain Road would take you back in here. It was a cutoff road that came later. This road right here is the original road that would take you from Watkinsville to Fort Daniel. Fort Daniel's right in this area. This was the frontier all the way up until 1820. And so this road right here, if you'll notice, most of its way never crosses a stream. It stays on the high ground as it moves and along. So there we are. We're going to follow 124 kind of back in this direction. And then we'll get right here to Hamilton Mill. Now, another unique thing is this is Hamilton Mill Road because it would take you to Hamilton Mill. The little mill that sits right here is actually in the wrong watershed, and it's many, many miles from the actual Hamilton Mill location. So right here, you're atop the Eastern Continental Divide. So you can see here's a little Mulberry that flows on its way to the Savannah River, and just on the other side of this, right here is some of the headwaters of Ivy Creek, and that makes its way to the Chattahoochee in the Gulf of Mexico. So you're sitting atop the Eastern Continental Divide when you're moving down this road. So that's why you've got kind of that laid out the way it is. Back in the day, Hamilton Mill Road used to split right about here, and one leg came this way, and it went around the swamp that's right in here. So that's why you have this unique dog leg that is Stancil Drive. As a kid, one end of Stancil Drive was spelled with an EL, and the other end was spelled with IL. So just one of those quirks where all sorts of crazy things can happen. All right, let's see if I can get y'all zoomed back out here. I apologize, my little button in the corner is kind of in my way. All right, as we continue up, we're going to follow just Hamilton Mill Road all the way up till it makes its intersection with Ridge Road. Now, just for giggles, Hamilton Mill was located much further up this way near Brogan Road. So follow Ridge Road. It's called a Ridge Road because it does follow that ridge line all the way up into Flowery Branch and Spout Springs area. comes up here, and now we'll pick up Thompson's Mill. You heard me mention Thompson's Mill earlier. That road would take you all the way to Thompson's Mill back in the day. You'll come down here and you'll hit North Puckett. That takes you over to the county boundary. Look there, there's old Thompson's Mill Road, because obviously the road was changed at some point. And then we come right back down and we essentially follow the county lines, with just staying away from the city of Auburn on this side. So that's why you've got those cuts right in those areas. So a little bit about that. Now let's go back and I'll show you this. This is a map from, let's get the date right, 1869. So this is what Gwinnett County looked like in 1869. And in this map, what you'll notice is, here's that boundary with Hall County we talked about earlier, and then I told you it made a funny cutover. There's no Barrow. Barrow doesn't come along until the 1920s. Now, one unique call out here, you'll see Auburn is listed right here. There's a road that comes from Auburn in this direction. And if we zoom in, that's land lot 335 and 336. Right in this area is where Hills Mill was. So there's one of your older roads in the area. Everything that is on this side of the Appalachian River, you notice, doesn't have all these little boxes and squares. These are what they call headright lands. And these lands were given out for political purposes, or for thanks for service in the Revolution, or because speculators purchased them. A variety of different reasons. When the Creeks are defeated and the Red Sticks are defeated in the War of 1812 and the Creek Indian War, this is where Gwinnett County is created, and they lay all these plots out. So if you go to Gwinnett County's GIS system, you can actually zone in and see what district and land plot you're in. So you see here's District 5, here's District 6, and that should be District 7, and then the individual land lots. So just a tiny piece of the city of Mulberry reaches over and touches some of these land lots. Right and through here is where you have your border on that from the zoning map. So really, Mulberry is mostly in old headright lands. You'll notice, let me call you a couple things out. Look how they got Auburn penciled in right here all of a sudden. This area is where Auburn originally used to be. If you read Mildred Flanagan's book, I think it's called Red Clay or something like that, it talks about Auburn, and then when the railroad came through going from Jug Tavern or Winder on its way to Decula, that they actually essentially moved the town to be on the rail line, and this became known as the Fence Community. So this area right here is where Auburn currently is, and then up in here is now what's known as Fence, and this road then became known as Fence Road. If we jump forward, now we'll see, and should be a 38 highway map. You see we've got our delineation here with this unique turn. And if we look at a Barrow County highway map from kind of the same time frame, let's expand that out so we can look at it just a touch closer. What we'll see is, as we zoom in, here's the Gwinnett County boundary right there. And there's that Auburn. And of course, back up in here would have been where Fence was at. So this is how we got that kind of cutout of Gwinnett County. This 38 highway map of Gwinnett, much more akin to what we're seeing today. Now, if you look, there's Rocky Creek. Georgia Militia District 1587, going back to the days of not having a standing army. We had militia districts that were charged with having to bring up people to fight when necessary, and so that's why you see GMD, Georgia Militia District, for each one of those areas. Then you'll notice there's the Duncans area where the Duncans had lived. There's the Pucketts, and of course those got carved up into A, B, C, and D as you had more and more time that kind of passed and more people moved in. Now, if you'll look right here, let me call out just a couple of quick things. Right down here is the Appalachia. There's that corner of the boundary. You'll notice I mentioned Appalachia Road. There's where Appalachia Road used to come across. Here's where the mill used to be, the historic mill site. Up through here, here's Bailey Road that would take you back in. This connector road right here is actually Bailey Woods Road. My grandfather said that was the oldest road in the community that he could believe, and that's because right here, this is the old Hill home place where my great-grandparents lived, and that's why it was built there, was because of it was right on this road. This one was added much later. Back in the day, you would have come up through here and followed across and come up Bailey Woods Road. You'll notice these two staggered roads right here. This is Jim Moore, and this is Old Fountain. You remember me telling you how those roads did not match, but now your districts, your voting districts, actually follow the original road line, and there they are. Just for your information, these black dots are homes or dwellings. So now I told you as you got up here, the road would look different. Look, here's where the road comes in and ties in. You had to make a T to go up Gravel Springs or take 124 to Lawrenceville. There's Hog Mountain Church, and there's the cemetery on the other side. Of course, progress being what it is, they then straightened 124 to turn this way and then brought the curve back in this direction to tie on right here. So there's how that looks. As we come up, here's 124, and you notice we're missing I-85. It hasn't been built yet. So what you'll see, this is that V that I talked about where Hamilton Mill Road tied into 124. And right here, you'll see here's a Duncan's Creek Church, an Antioch church, and you see this road that went across. Well, now you have a north and a south leg of those roads, just like most of these roads through here. They're cut in half. Another one I'll call out would be this one right here. This is Puggett's Mill Elementary, sits right in this area, and of course I-85 runs right here. And you can still see both these streams where they're at. And Puckett's Mill, the original mill, is set back in here on a big flat rock. Yeah, Team Automatics told me about where that was at. Just for your giggles, as you would come up and then make your way this direction toward Buford on Hamilton Mill, right here is where the actual Hamilton Mill would have been. And you'll notice the road went down in front of the mill itself. Now that's because where the current Hamilton Mill runs is kind of in this direction right here. All these cutoffs are straightened out. And now the road runs where the mill pond used to be, and it was sluiced down to where the actual mill was located at. Now, of course, there's the Mulberry, namesake of the area, and you make your way over here. There's Sardis Church, which is just off of Ridge Road, and make your way back over in this direction. Can kind of follow the pointees. Right here is Mount Moriah Church. Of course, the Kennedys live over in here, and this is one of the oldest churches and cemeteries in the area. So if you're looking, go out there and walk around that cemetery sometime. You'll see some very old burials in that. All right, so that's just a quick overview of what your place looks like. So if you're thinking about why did we get here, why are the lines where they're at, and how are things divided and why are they named, that is the reason why. So there's a little bit to you, and if you want to hear more, just let me know. Thanks.